Turtwig is the heaviest of all base form starter Pokemon, weighing at 22.5 pounds. All of Grotl's base stats are exactly 20 points lower than all of Torterra's base stats. Torterra is known as the continent Pokemon, with the only other Pokemon sharing that category being Groudon. In Diamond and Pearl, if you pick Chimchar as your starter Pokemon, there's a 1.56% chance that the first Starly you encounter after picking your starter will knock you out, when it's supposed to always flee once your Pokemon gets into the red HP zone. If the Starly does manage to knock out Chimchar, the game will then freeze, and this can't happen if you start with Piplup or Turtwig. The Monferno card from the set Diamond and Pearl, Majestic Dawn, knows the move Fire Fang, a move Monferno doesn't learn in the games. It also has Mid-Air Strike, which just doesn't even exist outside of the card game. Infernape is based off of Sun Wukong, the mythical Chinese Monkey King with supernatural powers. In Pokemon Go, they had event Piplups that were wearing Dawn's and Lucas's hats from Diamond and Pearl. According to some of Prinplup's Pokedex entries, they can be rather arrogant, always considering themselves to be more important than others, and as a result of this, they can never form a group together. In Pokemon Black and White, you can find a biker gang on Friday nights on the Two Blind Bridge who call themselves the Black Empoleon. If you defeat their leader in battle, they will then rename their gang to whatever the lead Pokemon in your party was that you used to defeat them. In 2008, they gave out an event Starly at the Kyocera Dome in Japan, which is a baseball field that can hold up to 55,000 people. This was part of the Pokemon Daisuke Club party events. Nearly every Pokedex entry for Staravia mentions how they always travel in flocks and fight rival flocks for territory. With Pokemon X and Y in Generation 6, Staraptor received a rather strange buff as it gained 10 extra points in its special defense stat, bumping it up to 60. This makes it slightly tankier, but didn't really make too much of a difference for Staraptor. On July 1st, 2021, Pokemon announced it was Bidoof Day. In honor of this, they released a music video featuring Bidoof parodying Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Bibarel is a water and normal type Pokemon, which are two of the most common individual typings in the game. However, Bibarel is the only Pokemon with both the normal and water typing at the same time. Kricketot evolves at the lowest level for any Pokemon with only 2 stages, evolving to Kricketune at level 10. In the Pokemon movie, Zoroark Master of Illusions, Kricketune can be seen going for Bullet Seed, but it doesn't learn Bullet Seed in the games. Shinx is the only Pokemon with a base nat total of exactly 263. Luxio is Pokedex number 404, which is the same number used to reference an error on web pages. Because of this, in the Japanese Pokemon website, the error pages have a Luxio on it. Many of Luxray's Pokedex entries say how it can see through walls. I guess it does have X-Ray in its name, so I shouldn't be too surprised at that one. Budew and Roserade are the only Pokemon that appear next to each other in the National Pokedex that don't have their middle evolution in between them. In Pokemon Battle Revolution, you can battle Rosie, who has a Roserade costume, but she does not have a Roserade on her team. Cranidos has 125 base attack stat and is the ace Pokemon of the first gym leader Rorik's team in Diamond and Pearl. This is the highest base stat attack for any Pokemon used by a first gym leader when you first challenge them. Cranidos' evolution, Rampardos, also has the highest attack stat out of any rock-type Pokemon with 165 attack. Shieldon, as well as its counterpart Cranidos, evolve at level 30, which is the lowest level out of all fossil Pokemon to evolve. The Courtyard Coliseum in Pokemon Battle Revolution is a building that is shaped just like Bastiodon's head. In Platinum, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and Black 2 and White 2, if you talk to the person who checks hidden powers for your Pokemon, they will say that Burmy does not learn Hidden Power even though Burmy learns it at level 20. In Black and White, School Kid Ann on Route 12 has a Sandy Cloak Wormadam that knows the move Leaf Storm, but only the Plant Cloak Wormadam form can learn Leaf Storm, while the Sandy Cloak form should have Fissure instead. Mothim doesn't have any physical form differences like its pre-evolution Burmy, but it does actually have 3 different forms depending on which Burmy it evolved from, which are only shown through the game's internal data and make no difference on the Mothims that you have. This is an early design for Combee that has pacifiers in its mouths, and for some reason I find it to be rather creepy. In Generation 4, Vespiquen was tied with Porygon for the most signature moves, having 3 signature moves in Attack Order, Defend Order, and Heal Order. Now, since there are so many signature moves in Pokemon now, especially since Generation 6, that's no longer the case, and Heal Order hasn't even been in the game since Generation 7. Everyone knows that Pachirisu was used by Sejun Park to win the 2014 VGC World Championships, but Pachirisu was also the Pokemon with the lowest base stat total to ever be a part of any world-winning team ever. Buizel has been featured in the Pokemon anime multiple times as it was one of the first Generation 4 Pokemon ever introduced, but every Buizel shown in the anime so far has been a male Buizel. Floatzel Level X was printed in the 2009 Pokemon TCG set Platinum Rising Rivals. And since then, Floatzel hasn't received any other special cards, whether it be a GX, V, Break, or EX, and just has regular generic cards which weren't very good. The only move Cherubi learns via Move Tutor in Sword and Shield is Grassy Glide. Due to a glitch in early versions of Legends Arceus, Cherubi was just uncatchable. Shellos, as well as Gastrodon, were originally planned to debut in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, but were scrapped for an unknown reason. Gastrodon has two forms, the East Sea form and the West Sea form, depending on where it was caught in Diamond and Pearl. Despite this, in Diamond and Pearl, no trainer ever uses an East Sea form Gastrodon in battle, even if they live on the east side of Sinnoh and use Gastrodon on their team. I guess it is possible they could have caught on the other side of the region, but I still find this a bit weird. Ambipom was able to learn the move Dual Chomp via level up in Generation 7, but it could not learn it through move tutors in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Many Pokemon appear in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but the first Pokemon ever revealed to be in the game was Drifloon. Drifblim has the highest HP stat of all flying types with 150 HP, which is also tied with Giratina for the highest HP stat among Ghost-type Pokemon. Buneary is the only Pokemon that can learn Frustration via level up, and Lopunny is the only Pokemon that can learn Return via level up. Mismagius has the same attack, defense, and HP stat as its pre-evolution Mysteryvis, but Mismagius has higher special attack, special defense, and speed. In Japan in the winter of 2018, there was a local event held to receive Cyrus's Honchkrow in your game. Glameow had its ears repositioned in Generation 7 compared to its Generation 6 model, and it was the only Pokemon that didn't receive any form changes to have its model be altered. Purugly is based off of a Nekomata, a Japanese cat yokai. Chingling is the lightest baby Pokemon, weighing 1.3 pounds, and it's the only baby Pokemon that is unobtainable in Sword and Shield. Some of Stunky's Pokedex entries say how its stench can be smelled from over a mile away. Skuntank cannot be traded on the GTS in Pokemon Black and White because the name sensors pick up its name as being offensive. There is an unused back sprite for Bronzor in the files of Diamond and Pearl that looks just like its front sprite. In the Explorer's Mystery Dungeon series, Bronzong has no weaknesses because it has both abilities Levitate and Heatproof at the same time to mitigate its ground and fire weakness, since at the time Steel resisted Ghost and Dark. Bonsly can be used in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness through the Battle Bingo, making it the first Pokemon usable in a battle in a generation before it was officially released. Mime Jr. is the only Pokemon with a catch rate of 145. Happiny's evolutionary line is the only Pokemon line that evolves twice under specific conditions, first with an Oval Stone and then via Friendship. In Eterna City, you can trade a Buizel for a Chatot named Chirap. If you transfer this same Chatot into Pokemon X and Y, the game will recognize the Chatot as being a Japanese Chatot from a Japanese version of the game. Spiritomb's English name was suggested to be Phantom by Nob Agasawara, the person responsible for many of the English Pokemon names, but Nintendo of America didn't like the name and went with Spiritomb instead. In the Pokemon Dream World, which is now defunct, you can find Gibbles in the Icy Cave even though they're weak to Ice-type Pokemon. Due to GTS sensors in Black and White, Gabite also cannot be traded on the GTS with its regular name. Garchomp has a notch in its fin to show if it's a male, but in the Pokepark games for the Wii, the Garchomp shown doesn't have a notch in its fin, but it's referred to as a male. Munchlax's English name was first revealed in October 2005, over 2 years before Diamond and Pearl released in English. It was also featured in 4 different side series games before Generation 4 officially started. Riolu is the only baby Pokemon that evolves into a Pokemon that can Mega Evolve. In the 2020 Pokemon of the Year poll, Lucario was voted to be the most popular Generation 4 Pokemon. Hippopotas has a very noticeable gender difference, but they only ever made official art for the male version. Hippowdon's female form is a completely different color than its male form too, making it pretty easy to confuse for a shiny if you aren't aware of this, but they are both officially categorized as being brown in the Pokedex, even though female Hippowdons have no brown on them. There are many bug and poison type Pokemon in the game, but Skorupi is the only bug and poison type Pokemon to have poison as its primary typing instead of bug. Drapion and its pre-evolution Skorupi are the only Generation 4 Pokemon in the Water 3 egg group, and they aren't even water types. In Pokken Tournament DX, Croagunk is the only playable character that is also a support Pokemon. Toxicroak is often shown with the wrong color, as although it is more of a dark purple, in the Who's That Pokemon section of the anime, it is seen to be much lighter and almost turquoise, much like its shiny form. Carnivine shares its name with this monster from the Dragon Quest series, which could be a coincidence or just a homage to Dragon Quest, which is very popular in Japan. Finneon can learn Nature Power via TM, but its evolution, Lumineon, cannot. Lumineon is often seen as the most forgettable Pokemon, yet in the Pokemon TCG, Lumineon V is one of the best support Pokemon, as it allows you to get any supporter card from your deck and is seen in a lot of different strategies today. Mantike is the only Pokemon that requires another specific Pokemon in Remoraid to be in your party in order to evolve into Mantine. Snover and its evolution are the only Pokemon to share the Grass and Ice typing. Abomasnow is the only Grass-type Pokemon that can Mega Evolve that is not a starter Pokemon. Weavile weighs 75 pounds, which is the exact same weight as Dawn from Diamond and Pearl. Magnezone evolves from Magneton when it's leveled up near a magnetic field, but since there are no magnetic fields in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you just can't evolve Magneton in those games. Licky clearly has a tail, but its shape category belongs to a group of Pokemon that don't have tails, as you can see here, which is also a different shape from its pre-evolution Lickitung, which clearly has a tail, which would also fit for Licky, so I don't know why they changed it. Some of Rhyperior's Pokedex entries state how it can shoot Geodudes out of its palms. Tangela wasn't catchable in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, so the only way to get Tangrowth in Generation 4 was to transfer over Tangela from a previous game then evolve it, until the release of Platinum version where you could finally catch a Tangela in Sinnoh. Electivire was the only Generation 4 Pokemon in the anime that was first shown before the actual Diamond and Pearl anime released, without being in a movie first. This Magmortar art from a Japanese card was censored for its English version because of how it's pointing its cannon directly at you. The Togekiss line are the only Pokemon in the Flying and Fairy egg groups. Yanmega has 116 special attack and only 76 attack, but it gives out 2 attack EVs when knocked out, which is unusual for a Pokemon to give EVs in one of its weakest stats, and on top of that, Yanmega isn't a very common Pokemon to find in the wild, as in many games you can't even find one. A Space World demo for Pokemon Gold and Silver features this Pokemon, which is supposed to be a grass evolution very similar to Leafeon. Glaceon's Japanese name is Glacia, which is also the name of the Hoenn Elite Four member who uses Ice-type Pokemon. Gliscor is 2 meters tall, which is about twice the height of its pre-evolution, Gligar, but Gliscor only weighs 93.7 pounds, while Gligar weighs 142.9 pounds. If it wasn't for the thick fat ability, Mamoswine would be the only Pokemon weak to Grass, Fire, and Water, the 3 base starter types. Porygon-Z is the only Pokemon part of a line that evolves twice that can be evolved fully at level 1, since Porygon and Porygon 2 do not need to be leveled up in order to evolve. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Gallade can't learn Metronome, although Routes and Kirlia can learn it. Probopass can evolve with a Thunderstone in some Pokemon games, making it the only non-Electric-type Pokemon to evolve with a Thunderstone. Dusknoir has gone for Rapid Spin in the Pokemon anime before, but it can't learn Rapid Spin in any of the games. Frostlass is the only Pokemon with the Ice and Ghost typing. When you fight Rotom in the Old Chateau, the legendary Pokemon battle music plays, even though Rotom isn't a legendary Pokemon. Muxie is known as the Being of Knowledge and can wipe out people's memories. Mesprit is the Emotion Pokemon, a category it shares with Kirlia and Indeedee. Azelf, as well as the entire Lake Trio, are said to be based off of the 3 Imperial Regalia of Japan, with Azelf representing the Kusanagi no Sugiri, the sword that represents Valor, and coincidentally, Azelf is found at Lake Valor. Dialga has the highest special attack set of all Steel-type Pokemon, with 150 special attack. Origin Form Palkia is the heaviest Water-type Pokemon, weighing 1,455.1 pounds. Heatran is the only Fire and Steel-type Pokemon. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Regigigas has the widest overworld sprite out of all Pokemon. In Platinum version, when you battle Giratina in the Distortion world, it doesn't have a shadow under its sprite until it breaks out of a Pokeball or goes for Shadow Force. In Pokemon 4 Coma, a Japanese Pokemon manga, Cresselia is mistakenly referred to as an Ice type multiple times. Phione is the only Pokemon obtainable through breeding a mythical Pokemon, and it also can't produce its own eggs or evolve into the Pokemon needed to breed it. The Manaphy egg you get from Pokemon Ranger isn't supposed to hatch into a shiny, but due to an oversight you could trade the egg to another game for a small chance of it hatching into a shiny Pokemon, making it one of the most difficult shinies to obtain. In the Explorer's Mystery Dungeon games, Darkrai is the only non-Ghost type Pokemon that can go through walls. Even though Shaman is a mythical Pokemon, the regular wild Pokemon battle theme plays when you battle it in Diamond and Pearl. Arceus is a mythical Pokemon, but sometimes it's referred to as a legendary Pokemon, like by Norman in Pokemon Masters in the official English site, although on the Japanese site it refers to Arceus as a mythical Pokemon.